Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy. This is our second attempt. If you are a long-term listener, you know we are also known as the Technical Difficulties Podcast. But today, if you're a new listener, because you're here because of one Miss Elanie Welch, we are going to do our best to keep the technical difficulties at a minimum, but no promises. We're hashtag doing our best here.
And that's all you can ask from us is to do our freaking best.
That's all. If
Um,
you ask for more, you're going to be denied.
you're do not pass go of denied access. To give you girls, guys, gays, whoever's listening to this, a little intro to who we are. If it's the very first time you are coming on to our beautiful podcast. I'm one half of the podcast. I'm Maddie Martinez. I'm a women's health coach. I'm a woman of many talents, actually. But I work with women 50 and up. That is my focus. And we really focus on helping, me and my team, me of me, focus on helping women 50 and up through menopause, learn how to get stronger, learn how to reduce their risk of type 2 diabetes, learn how to actually get the weight loss that they want, that they've been trying to have for years with very sustainable habits, one thing at a time. That is what I focus on with women. And Allie here, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I am Allie. I am the better half of this podcast. And I am
Mhm.
also a women's health and fitness coach, and I work with first-time moms, moms with littles, because the overwhelm doesn't stop. It just gets worse. I'm also sorry, I'm very distracted. My cats are going after each other right now, so I'm gonna have to get up in a minute. But I work with women who are postpartum. They want to take the overwhelm out of weight loss. And postpartum health and fitness is not just about bouncing back or losing weight. That is an aspect for some women. They do want to lose the weight. They want to feel like their old selves in their bodies, but it's also about becoming physically stronger so you can be the mom that says yes. It's about feeling confident. It's about wanting to be in those family pictures. Because so many women have this experience that after kids, I couldn't prioritize myself because there just wasn't enough time in the day. And you're right, there's not enough time in the day. But what I help these women do is pick pockets during the day where we can prioritize themselves, prioritize their health. And it results in having this hot mom experience where they feel good mentally, physically, emotionally, and they're the mom that they always dreamed that they could be. Um, and that's something that is just like very near and dear to my heart. And it's funny because Maddie and I literally work on two opposite ends of the spectrum, but it's also kind of funny because it's like we are working with women that are going through massive changes, but kind of on other ends, right? Because if you're thinking about menopausal women, if they do have children, right, they're leaving the home, maybe they're going to college, they're getting married. That's a big transition for those women. On the other end,
Mhm.
when you're becoming a first time mom or you have littles, that is your first experience as well. And so needing support through these big life changes is something that you can't sleep on, genuinely.
Mhm.
I don't know how people walk around this earth without having an outside level of support. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, coming from someone who's had a coach, I would say every year I've been a coach, besides my first year, I've had a coach of some sort.
I had a coach before I became a coach. That kind of was like inspired me a little bit because I was in school for nutrition and I was like, oh, I love this. But then having that experience, I was like, oh, wow, this person changed my life. I want to
Hmm.
do that. So yeah, support, very iconic and very important.
We live for the support. I want to give a little intro to our beautiful,
Yes.
amazing guest we were having on, Elanie. We love to call anyone that's been on once already friend of show. So Elanie is definitely a friend of show. She's going through or has gone through, I'm not sure it's kind of been happening, a rebrand of her podcast and her focus. And the last time we had her on, we were talking about homesteading and chronic diseases, and we're going to continue that conversation about that with her rebrand. She's been working on a documentary. In the documentary, I'm forgetting the name. Oh, here we go. Alive and Well, Healing from Within. And they follow families diagnosed with incurable diseases and terminal illnesses as they go through a different pathway to find health and find, a relief without just having to use mainstream Western ours is Western, right? Yeah, Western
Yes.
medicine. Sorry, I had a blank in the mind. Western medicine. So we wanted to bring her on to talk about her new, I wouldn't say new venture because she's always been interested in this, but her more, I don't know how to exactly say it, but her more narrowed
Concentrated.
approach, concentrate, yeah, narrowed sounds correct, concentrated approach, focusing on talking about people, talking about chronic diseases, talking about all the ways that Western medicine likes to frown upon when it comes to terminal illnesses, and how there are so many other ways to really attack something from within, which me and her had connected on. And if you don't know, like, I was diagnosed with a quote unquote incurable illness and have worked through that using a bunch of different methods, having coaching as well. So we're really excited to talk to her about how her documentary is going, how her focus has been switching her near. My brain's not working today. Really
Okay.
focusing on this today. But we're excited to have her on. So we'll just get right into the episode.
Amy, we are so excited to get into this conversation. Like, not us already trying to podcast when we're not recording, but we had you on how many? It was had to be like sometime last year. And obviously, a lot has happened for all three of us. But what has been like, give us a little mini life update. Like last time we talked to you, we were really covering homesteading a lot. And we were talking not as intensely about the documentary that you're producing. We're going to be covering that a lot today and just pillars of healing. But is there anything like any major life updates that have happened? Like, I think since last time we talked, I got married. Maddie has been divorced and dating. Like, time has been passing us.
And a lot of things relating to marriage and our
Yes. Yeah,
institutions have changed.
literally.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Let's see what's happened since we talked. I mean, producing a documentary is basically to expect a life full of changes and ups
Yeah.
and downs, right? It's been a really wild ride. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I'm glad I didn't know what it was going to be like when I first started because I probably wouldn't have started. But now that I'm in it, it's like it's an adrenaline rush, right? And I love it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, how does one even start to get into producing a documentary? I'm like, do I just like pick up my phone? Like, what am I doing? That seems like you probably have picked up so many skills that you never thought you needed or never knew you were capable of.
Totally. Yeah, I think the first requirement for anybody to start a documentary is that you have to be partially unhinged, right? That's step number one. Um, no, it's honestly, it was I was in the podcast already. I had started the podcast, which at the time was Renegade Nutrition. It just covered all things wellness and it was more generalized. I started that with my podcast partner Kay in 2022. And that was the culmination of a lot of things moving into that path. I had just left my job and yeah, anyway, I had just broken my back. There was so much that was happening at that time. I
Yeah.
started the podcast and we started to realize we were hearing really powerful stories on the
Mm,
podcast. And story creates emotion, and emotion creates connection, and connection creates community, and community creates change. And so I think the idea was the podcast is really powerful in terms of we're hearing all these stories and we're realizing that the stories are what people are interested in. Because
hmm
if you have advanced ALS and you are handed a pamphlet on ALS and the diet, to follow for ALS and the lifestyle changes, it's like that's information and that's valuable. But if
Yeah.
you hear a story from someone who's had ALS and has gone into remission, or better yet, you watch that story unfold before your own eyes, how much more powerful is that to create change for you
Oh
and
yeah.
for those around you? And so that was kind of the impetus behind the idea of getting started with a documentary. And I just think it's like there's always been this part of me that's totally unafraid to take risks, right? And it was like, we could figure this out, right? We could take on this multi-$100,000 project with no money and just expect it to like work out. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
like maybe that is part of just being unhinged, but I don't think it's unrealistic. I mean, I think that when people set their mind to do something and decide that they can do it, they will,
Yeah.
because ultimately you decide whatever barrier comes up, I'll find a way around it, right? That's kind of like
Mhm.
Maria's idea of everything is figure outable. It's like you just have to set yourself at the beginning of there's going to be all kinds of barriers and obstacles in this road, and I'm not going to let that stop me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been wild. And probably it's been the biggest change in my life, every year since we started it, which it really began in 2024, I think is when it like officially really started to take off.
Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, it's just every minute of my life is different from the one before it. As you
Yeah.
move through that, you travel, you meet new people, you gain new skills, you learn big life lessons. Like there's just no way to not have massive change when you undertake something so monumental.
Yeah. Oh, I no, I can't even imagine, but it, framing it in the way of like having somebody who does have some sort of like terminal disease sitting on their couch at home watching this and seeing a story unfold and they're like, I see myself in this story. Maybe this could also help me, or I can now see the vision of what my future could be like. Maybe it doesn't have to be just like what I've been told, or my kind of healing path is going to break the bounds of like what this pamphlet is just telling me, right? Because it is so, of course, like disease, illness, it's so clinical, but there's also so many emotional stories and connection and things you can just learn from sharing stories. I mean, I recently, and I haven't talked about it on the podcast, and I'm not really ready to go there yet, but I've experienced something, and talking with other people who have gone through it is it brings you a type of validation and understanding and even just a path forward. So I can't wait to watch this documentary. And, do you want to just jump into like sort of the pillars of healing? Because this documentary is really about that, right? Like taking these terminal illnesses and kind of flipping the script on maybe what we're traditionally told.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And the podcast since I've rebranded has been the same. Now it's
Yeah.
Renegade Remission, which is
Oof.
probably like a ballsy choice, right? I wanted to keep the renegade part because
Yep.
I feel like that's a big piece of the message, right? Is that we're rebelling against what a system basically, right? In
Hmm.
this terms, it's like in the case of the podcast and my like branding, it's like we're rebelling against the system that's in place right now regarding our healthcare. And we're
Yep.
choosing not to just concede to subpar healthcare, subpar results, subpar lives. So I kept it that and turned it into Renegade Remission. And the podcast explores these very same pillars that we explore in the documentary that we'll talk about now. So that's Renegade Remission. And that's been super rewarding because as I started looking at a rebrand, I looked for what's an audience that's really underserved. And I can tell you
Mm.
right now, it's the audience of people who are facing terminal illness. Chronic illness, less so. And that's part of my audience as well. It's chronic and terminal illness. But terminal illness specifically, there is maybe one other podcast that I've been able to find specifically geared towards offering clinically sound nutrition, lifestyle-based solutions and tools for somebody with terminal illness. So there's terminal illness podcasts that focus on living with terminal illness and
Yep.
the emotions that come up with terminal illness, and that is super important, right? But there's nobody that's offering solutions, and there are solutions. And so I felt like this was such an underserved space, right? There's no guarantees in life.
Yeah.
My firm belief is that everybody can heal, everybody can. That doesn't mean everybody will, because there's a lot that goes into a healing journey. And sometimes our bodies are beyond, we're at the place where we don't have enough time to
Yeah.
investigate all of the things that need to change in our lives, right? Like that can be possible. But I'll tell you right now, I've been researching for the past 7 straight months since rebranding the podcast and the several years that preceded that as I worked on the
Yeah.
documentary. I've been researching remission stories and I've read probably over 1,000 by now. And that's
Wow.
what's crazy. First of all, there is like an actual clinical document. It's like the annotated bibliography of spontaneous remissions. That is a thick tome I managed to buy. I think I've gotten one of the last copies of it. It's very hard to find. It's 3,500, so 3,500 cases that are fully
Wow.
documented of spontaneous remission. When we talk about spontaneous remission, what it means is somebody healed who should not have healed. They were in the late stages of a disease, they were dying, and they got better. There are people that have literally been told they have a few weeks to live and they get better and live for 20 years. And that's
Right.
documented. What's crazy about that whole collection is that a lot of them don't explain how that person achieved remission because the doctors don't ask. And
Mhm.
so, first of all, for a doctor to go to the length to publish that case report, that's a huge like step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But what baffles me is first, a doctor or a scientist has to publish that case report. So that alone, right now we're looking at the very, very tip of the iceberg is doctors who are willing to publish that kind of case report because most doctors are told to ignore those spontaneous remissions because they don't validate the science. So a doctor has to
Okay.
be willing to do that. They have to be willing to
It's kind of
publish.
like a blip on the radar. They're just like,
Exactly.
this
Mhm.
is not necessarily meaningful.
Right. That's the thought, right? It's not
Yeah.
true, but that's the prevailing
Mhm.
thought is, oh, this is an outlier. Outlier makes our data set not look pretty. Let's get rid of the
Hmm.
outliers, right?
Mhm.
And if we
And
don't
not to
document, oh, go.
I,
Yeah, go.
I just wanted to include, and you might remember this, Elanie, but when I was struggling with presenting symptoms of psoriatic arthritis, I was on Humira, and that's a hard medication to take on your liver. And the last appointment I had with my rheumatologist, he asked me how many doses I've missed because I stopped taking it because I was working with a practitioner on this. And I'm like, I haven't taken it in like 6 months. And although not all of my symptoms are gone, the symptoms of joint pain, inflammation, I could not walk, did not reappear. He did not ask me one thing.
Yeah.
He didn't ask me one thing. And it's very sad because I think about how many people are going to that office for the same issues I was having. And again, like I think healing is not linear. There's just like if anyone's familiar with like a nervous system, like I want to ask you questions about that. We're never regulated 100% of the time. It's impossible. But just like with my own journey, there are different things that come up, but the biggest things that were impeding my quality of life did not reappear, and he had no desire to ask about it. And I was like, that's very disappointing.
Yeah, and it's hard for them to ask the questions because first of all, it's not in their toolkit. Second of all, they don't have the time, right? They get
Hmm.
10 minutes, 15 minutes max with you.
Hmm.
And so they don't have the time. They know if they learn that information, they're going to feel like they need to repeat it to others and they risk losing their license, right? And so the medical system is not set up to put doctors in a position to succeed in that way. So to even report a case study is already a big leap for many of these doctors. And so many of the cases, and there's a lot of them share changes that were made, But I would say a majority don't because they didn't ask. They thought, oh, this is interesting. This person came in, they had advanced lung cancer, right? I saw the tumors the size of grapefruits. They were on their deathbed. And then suddenly they had this miraculous recovery. And I just happened to see them 5 years later and I asked them about it and I published the case report, right? But so many of them don't even publish why. And I think that's interesting. Now, when you get into like anecdotal stories like you just shared, Maddie, then you get the details. And so working on a podcast and a documentary on remission is like you have to include both. You have to have the science because that's what people want to see, the verified clinical studies, right? But if
Yeah.
you limit yourself to that, you're not going to have any answers. You have to go into the anecdotal stories and accept that, yes, there's a chance of misdiagnosis. Is that common in real life? No. Right. Yes, there's a chance that the person is fabricating the story. Is that 100% of stories? Absolutely not. It could be 1%. Like, what's the advantage of doing that to a person, right? But that's like the view when there's so many people that are so hard set in the science that they won't look at any of the anecdotal stories, but the anecdotal stories are where you actually get the idea of what changes were made. So you have to lean into both. And yeah, that's the idea with the podcast and the documentary too. And Maddie, your story is like so many others. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have said, I went into my doctor and I asked them, do you want to know how I did this? And the doctor just says, no, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm glad it's working for you, you know? And it's like, oh,
Wow.
how terrible is our medical system that that's the trained response. And they are doing it to protect their license and, you know, their
Mhm.
license is their livelihood. So I can't fault it, but it's a terrible system that's been set in place. And so that's one of the goals with the film is to highlight like
Mhm.
let's fix this. This is broken. This is not working.
Ooh, wonder what happened to Allie's
Oh,
connection. It's okay. We can
it
keep
tells
going
me
if
I'm the
we.
host now. So
I don't think so. Allie, you good?
Yeah, no, I was just about to text you. I think a tree just fell on a
oh,
line. So
Oh,
so I might now I just put it to our my phone. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
are you in the midst of a storm? Like are you calling me from the center of a hurricane?
No, it's really windy. I just heard like a crack and I don't know I don't know what's happening, but
Okay.
we're fine. I mean, I'm the house is fine, but I just heard a big bang and yeah.
Okay. Well, don't go outside where
Yeah.
there could be power
No, I'm
lines on the
here.
ground.
Girl, I am here. I am sat and hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Okay, good deal.
I
Anyway,
ha I had a question. Sorry, I've already lost the train of thought that you were on, but I had a question. When you say the emphasis and part of, what you're speaking about, like clinically research things, do you feel that is limiting it all? And I say that because I personally feel like there is so much research that has not truly begun yet or been really done when it comes to things like, especially, I feel like it's kind of like a hot topic depending on what TikTok feed you're on. But when it comes to nervous system and fascia, I feel like that is such something that like in like 5 years we're gonna be like the mainstream healthcare is gonna maybe come onto it. But do you feel like some of the things that you are looking at maybe disregard some of things like nervous system and fascia, or like what does that really mean to you? Like define, I guess, clinically researched things.
Yeah, when you're talking about clinical research, does it cover that? Rarely, right?
Hmm.
Because clinical research tends to focus around things that are going to make somebody money, right? Like let's just call it what it
Hmm.
is.
yeah.
Hmm.
And fascia work is not patentable. It can't be
Hmm.
trademarked. It can't be put in a pill, in a bottle that makes a pharmaceutical company money. So is it going to be the priority for research? Not unless it's privately funded,
Hmm.
or you have a philanthropist who's really interested in it, or you happen to get a rare grant. I mean, there are some grants from the NIH that are focused on functional medicine or alternatives, but it's a very, very small percentage of their grant money. The majority of it goes towards bigger institutions. So,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. That's why you cannot limit yourself just to clinical research because you will not find the answers you want. You can
Mhm.
verify as much as you want with clinical research, but at some point you have to be comfortable accepting that there are things that we have not explained with science and probably will never explain with science, but they work. And
Mm.
and
Mhm.
at some point, you
Mhm.
just have to be comfortable landing there, right? That's the
Mhm.
balance. That's with like the podcast, with the documentary. Of course, I want to provide sound, scientific backed information, and I cannot stop there, or I will have
Mhm.
just such a bland, vanilla presentation of information because it's
Yeah.
Right.
limited. Yes, absolutely. It's 100% limiting. It's why it drives me crazy the statement that emerged during the COVID era of I believe in science. I'm like, do you? Do you know what actual science is, right? Because because science is limited and science cannot explain everything. And by the way, science is not
Mhm.
Tinkerbell. You don't have to believe in it for it to exist. Okay, we all believe in science. Like, let's just stop
Mhm.
that nonsense. Anyway,
Mhm.
that's my own personal tangent. But yeah, like science is so limited. We cannot stop there. We have to look at lived experience. We have to look at real stories. We have to be comfortable with single person case studies and letting that be enough to just
Mhm.
at least spark curiosity, to
Mm.
ask the deeper questions. Obviously, if one person could do it, then it can be done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I agree
That's
with
my
that.
opinion.
Have you had any research? And of course, I'm blanking on his name. He is, oh crap, what is his name? He does a lot of breath work. He's super well known.
Like Wim Hof
Yes, but what the crap?
or
He does
James Nestor.
no, he does
Okay.
retreats that
Okay.
he's known for.
Wim Hof is the one I'm familiar with that puts on the most like retreats and is kind of a well-known.
Right, it's similar, but he does more meditation based.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but anyhow,
Not Dispenza.
yes,
Joe
yes,
Dispenza. Yeah,
yes.
Joe Dispenza's big on the mind-body connection. Like that is his whole thing.
Yes, and I found it so interesting that they have been doing a ton of research when it comes to having remind me of the correct phrase for when people lose a terminal illness. What did you say?
Remission.
Remission.
No, spontaneous
Spontaneous
remission.
remission. Yeah.
Yes, so he's been known to have people like come on stage and have spontaneous remissions, which can sound obviously a little woo-woo. But the interesting thing I was reading about him is that they do a lot of research, like in labs, showing the evidence of the blood work and the cells change, and people like on a cellular basis after doing his meditations and breathing and walking routines, their cells change. And I was like, that you can't bottle that up. You can't
Yeah.
sell that. Like, I mean, he sells it, but you
Yeah.
can't go to the doctor and get prescribed that. And I was curious, like, if you were familiar with that or have ever tried it or have seen any of your people in the documentary or have any like anecdotes about it.
Yeah, I'm hugely familiar with Joe Dispenza's work. I mean, I first learned about his work through the documentary Heal, which is a really great documentary if you haven't seen it, but it's largely based on the mind-body connection and that element of healing. And that's one of my healing pillars. And so anytime I'm going into like the mind-body connection, he's somebody I reference. Now he's like a pretty controversial figure. So I look everywhere, right? I always confirm, confirm, confirm. And like anybody's research that I follow, I take what resonates and I leave what seems questionable, right? But he's
Mhm.
done a tremendous amount of research. And what I can really appreciate about him is, yeah, with those healing retreats that he does, all of his participants can get before and after blood work. So they get blood work going into the retreat and then they get blood work leaving the retreat. And they document clinical change, third party vetted and and I wish everybody who was in the alternative healing space had that much money to do something like that, right? At least he's using the money he gets to confirm with research and to validate it and to give it some like clinical backing because otherwise it does sound woo-woo. But there's so
Right.
much to it, right? The mind-body connection is totally real. Like let's just dive into that, right? That's one of the pillars. We can just start there. It's
Yeah.
one of the most important ones. You want to go into it is like the placebo effect and the nocebo effect are very, very real. So the placebo effect is when you believe that a medication or a treatment is going to work, it produces the desired outcomes even when you don't get it, but you think you got it.
Mm.
So this is like the standard of testing a new drug, right? Is that they will give one group a sugar pill and one group the actual like pharmaceutical that they're looking
Mhm.
to test. And in every study, the placebo effect is about 30 to 40% effective. So almost half, like let's just take 40% as the upper range. Almost half
Mhm.
of people, and sometimes it's as high as 60%, and in some trials,
Wow.
75%. So a non a non-bioactive component, non-active, like no pharmaceutical, it's just sugar. And which in fact sugar is terrible for your body. So that's even fascinating, right? Like, but you take something and you tell somebody this is going to get rid of your joint pain. And because they think it will, it does. And all they're
Hmm.
taking is a sugar pill. And
Mhm.
that is like we've dismissed that for so long, right? I hear people say it all the time, like, well, I don't actually know if it's working or it's just the placebo effect. And I'm like, the placebo effect is a real clinical effect. It's not even that you just feel better and imagine you feel better. It's that your biomarkers of disease go down. It's that it influences serotonin, dopamine pathways, which reduce pain in the body just the same as a pharmaceutical drug would do, right? There are measurable clinical changes that happen, and people dismiss it because they can't point to a
Mm.
tangible substance that caused it. It's the
Mhm.
intangible of what we think is going to happen. And that makes people
Right.
uncomfortable, right? But it's
Mhm.
verified in science 30 to 40%, at times 75% of people get better just because they think that they will. So
Mhm.
instead of like dismissing that, why haven't we harnessed that, right? Why haven't we made that part of like a normal medical protocol? So drug is only approved if it's about 30% more effective than placebo, and very few drugs are approved for that very reason, because the
Hmm.
majority of them are
Wow.
not more effective than a placebo.
Mhm.
There have been studies even of sham surgeries. There was a surgeon that was a knee surgeon. That was kind of his like profession, right? Was focused on, he was trialing a new form of knee surgery. And he did to set it up, he had the old way of doing the surgery, the new way of doing the surgery that he was trying out that he thought would be more effective, and then a placebo sham surgery. So in this sham surgery, they just made 3 incisions and then talked for a few minutes and then closed the knee back up. The person went through anesthesia, so they never knew they got a sham surgery. They thought they got the real surgery. And then, they did like debridement, washing out the ligaments, and then they had this new surgery. And the placebo group had the best outcomes. And the guy basically was like, my life is a sham, right? Like, people are getting better from my surgery because they think they will, not because the surgery itself is actually like doing the improvement. And in fact, the sham surgery group, not only did they have similar outcomes at the beginning to the actual new surgery group, right? In terms of pain reduction, mobility, returning, all of that. Not only did they have that, but long term, they did better. They maintained mobility for longer. They had reduced joint pain for longer. So the placebo effect is real and it's powerful and it's clinical. On the
Mhm.
flip side of that is the nocebo effect, right? This is where when you're told that something is going to happen, that's like you're either, let's say you're facing a terminal illness and you're told you have 2 months to live. That's why so many people pass away at that 2 month mark, right? Because that's what they've programmed their biology.
Right.
If they take that diagnosis and they Im embed it and like internalize it, right? And that becomes
Right.
their law, is like, I'm going to die in 2 months. I'm going to get my affairs in order. This is it. This is the end. I'm going to say goodbye. And they just internalize that timeline. Most commonly, they die within that time frame. But they've even shown in autopsies that people have been misdiagnosed and actually not had a life-threatening illness. And yet they were told they were going to die in 2 months, so they did. That
Oof.
is crazy, right? That's real. That's happened.
Yeah.
And you look on a less like severe scale, but like symptom based, they've done trials with like when they're testing out like new chemotherapies with placebo chemotherapies, and the people in the placebo group still lose their hair because they think that that's what's going to happen because they think they're getting chemotherapy, but they're actually not even getting chemotherapy. So
Right.
that is the nocebo effect, right? And that's the like big part of it. And that's part of what I really work on with the podcast and with the documentary film right away is your diagnosis and your prognosis are information. They're useful, they help, they give you a category, they give you a place to start searching, but they cannot become your identity and your reality because
Mm-hmm.
once you just adopt this sense of I have this disease, and that's what you tell yourself every day. Yeah, every day your
Right.
cells in your body turn over. Your body rebuilds. It has the capacity to rebuild. The reason it rebuilds in the same disease patterns is because we condition it to. We're telling ourselves every day, I have this condition, I have this condition, I have this condition. This condition causes joint pain. This condition causes inflammation. This condition makes my heart enlarge. This condition restricts my lungs, right? We tell ourselves that and we embed it in our biology. And it might sound kind of like to people who aren't in the space, who haven't done the research, maybe it sounds woo-woo, but honestly, it's
Right.
been clinically proven that
Yeah.
what we tell ourselves becomes our daily condition. And so that's a big piece of, for me, the podcast is let's reframe the mindset. Let's
Yeah.
not refer to, I have stage 4 cancer, I have advanced ALS, I have Alzheimer's, right? Let's just say I have an imbalance in the body. I learned that trick from Sina McCullough and I loved it. I have, instead of saying I have cancer, I have an imbalance. And today I'm working on that imbalance. I have an imbalance. I
Mm-hmm.
have an imbalance. You imagine if you went to a friend and you said, I have stage 4 cancer versus like, and just imagine like what's the reaction they have and what's the like that sucks the air out of the room, right? Now imagine if you went to that friend and you said, I have a biological imbalance in my body. They'd be like, all right. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
totally reframes it in a different way, but it's still true. Like cancer is an imbalance, MS is an imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease, they're an imbalance in the body. And the disease name that we gave it is insignificant. It's what we need to know is what caused it, what's happening, how can we get to the root of it? And if we can
Hmm.
address the root of what caused it, then we can address the outcome itself,
Right.
right? But don't get attached to what the name of the outcome is.
Mm.
That's just information.
Yeah. I think a
Oh,
lot
go
of
ahead.
times people, they, I've seen they get, when you get a diagnosis, like that is maybe an answer you've been searching for. So you hold it and you own it. And it is so interesting to think about the mind body connection and like the changes that we can see when you're doing like lab work, because it would be foolish to sit here and say like, oh, the way I think has nothing to do with my body. Like our bodies are very complex. Like we can't just be like surface level and be like, oh, the way I think has nothing to do with my physical body. Like, no, I don't believe that we were made to be this way because there is no connection. Like that feels ridiculous. Like if you think a happy thought, you start to smile, you start to feel good, your energy comes up. So of course, if we are living in this energy of I have this, diagnosis, so I do just have joint pain or I do have this, I do have that. It closes out I think the capacity for change, but I also just like people don't have the opportunity to like have these conversations or know these things. So I do think this conversation is so powerful because it's going to open up the idea for them. Because how many times you just go to the doctor, this is this, and maybe we don't know why it happens, or it's so common, like it just happens. And a lot of people, I don't think, feel maybe the confidence, especially women, to like push back and be like, well, why? Can we understand further? So this conversation is like so powerful, and the work that you are doing in this documentary and bringing it to more of the forefront just allows people to kind of see these diseases and different health conditions for more of like not just what they are, but how and why and what else we can do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just think it's like we are so conditioned to confuse the words common and normal. It's
Ugh, yes.
common in our society, right? Like one in two people will have a chronic disease. That's common. That's not normal. That's not how we
Right.
were created. That's not how life evolved. Hello, regardless of whether you believe that we were created by a creator or you believe we were created by evolution, it goes against either theory, right?
Right.
Because evolution doesn't favor disease patterns. So
Yep.
so it's like it's just we have to change the conversation. We have to change the conversation. And what I'm talking about is not being in denial, right? People confuse that sometimes. It's like, well, if a doctor tells you you have 4 months to live and you go home and just live your life as if you've never heard that, that's being in denial. And there's a difference because
Yeah.
many of the people who have experienced spontaneous remission or remission with a known cause, they weren't in denial. They heard the information. They said, okay, the doctors told me I have 4 months to live. I don't believe that's the whole story, but I accept that that's the medical outline of my condition, right? That's the parameters that have been set on it. And I believe there's more I can do. So it's not about just sticking your head in the sand,
Right.
right? And pretending that you don't have anything wrong. It's different than that. It's taking ownership of your health. And you're so right, Ali, that especially women who are very dismissed by the medical system often have a hard time when you're in front of a person in a white coat, you have a very hard time because they're an authority figure and we're taught
Mhm.
to respect authority. You have a hard time challenging them. And so it's very easy just to give your power over to them. But as soon as you walk out of that office, just take it right back, right? You can sit there in the office, you can listen, you can nod your head, you can say, okay, okay. Best is to bring a list of questions, a list of research, things you've looked into, ask them actual questions about it. Very few people go into a doctor's office prepared the way they need to be, and then no wonder they're steamrolled. But walk out of that office, take a deep breath, take your power back, go home and start researching on your own because I can promise you you're going to be reading research your doctor has never read.
Right.
Mhm.
And
I mean,
we'll go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, from another anecdotal experience, there was multiple times I was getting like a new PCP like every other month, it felt like, because they kept, or every other year, because they kept leaving, which a lot of them do because they're tired of being like a cog in the.
Oh, that's all right. She'll come back.
We'll
This
retain
is,
where she's at. Well, I don't
I
know how long
know.
she'll continue talking until she realizes she's
Oh,
stopped
yeah.
talking.
But, in something that I went through recently, I had in that moment, like my doctor, he is actually like, he breaks the
I bet.
the bounds in my head. Like I actually see him for like not this authority figure, but somebody that like I respect, but I also can bring things up to him. Like he had this, like I said to my husband, I was like, I don't know if he's aura farming or what he's doing, but he walked into a room and I was like, this is different. I get a vibe from you, and this feels not like you're going to tell me something. We can work together. And I was doing some research the other night on a couple of things, and I was telling my husband, I was like, oh, I'm gonna call and, just ask him what his thoughts are because, like, I can, or, maybe I'll go in and see him and whatever. And he's like, oh, but like, wouldn't he have told you that? And I was like, well, no, probably not, because maybe he doesn't know about it. Maybe he has heard this anecdotal, information from other patients or things like that. And it's like, it does not hurt to try and ask. And if there's not enough research on something, okay, well then, you know what? Maybe we move on or we keep investigating. But I think it is important to take your power back, like you said, take that power back. If you feel like, whew, wow, I did not feel in control in that room, or maybe I felt stupid or I didn't know what to ask, go home, take a breather, and the internet can be a confusing place, but it can also be a place where you can uncover things that you didn't know. And so then you can go back and feel more empowered. Um, And I think that's just an important part of this because again, like you said, common does not equal normal. And I do not believe we should settle for something just because it's common. Oh, it's common. Oh, I know this, I know this, I know that. Okay, great, but why? Like, why is this
Hmm.
all happening?
Hmm.
Yeah. Maddie, what were you saying?
Yeah, it kicked me right out.
Yeah, I
I was
did.
like, where did I go? Oh, so I had a new PCP and she was asking me like, oh, you look like a runner. Do you run? I was like, no, I don't run, but I lift, 4 times a week. And she was like, you really need to start with some cardio. It's good for your heart. And I was like, well, actually, did you know that, this was like years ago. So the studies are obviously there are probably many more much current ones, but resistance training, weight training is, if not better, at least a minimum, the same amount of cardiovascular health and your heart pumping that it is to, running and jogging. It most likely is better at this point. Like if you're doing 20 plus reps, like it's cardio basically. It is cardio.
You're breathing
And
hard through that.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not familiar with that. And that's because they're told one thing and they don't have time to research every little thing. And I've had numerous PCPs tell me that. And I do cardio. I mean, I walk every day. I'm very active in that sense, but just because I'm not doing traditional going for a run, doesn't mean I'm not getting the same benefit, if not better, for my heart. And so again, having those things that that work for your body and you've done some research on it and just coming equipped with that, it definitely does leave you with a sense of confidence going into your appointment and feeling better about what you're doing for your health and what's working and what will actually work for you and something you can actually maintain, which is
Right.
Yeah.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what people need to understand too is a doctor is not a researcher and they don't necessarily know how to read research papers, right? If you just like have ever being in a non-research space, for anybody that's listening, if you've ever picked up a clinical trial and actually read it, it's hard to understand if you don't have the training in the language, the statistics, like what they're using to measure the outcomes, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of scientific jargon. And I think people assume because a doctor is an intelligent person that they just know how to read that. But when I was in my first master's degree, I took a class specifically geared towards learning how to read the research. It taught
Mm.
us like the statistical analyses they use, the different programs they use to run those analyses, what the like confidence interval means, like it went into in depth. And there was one MD in my class, one, and everybody else was master's or PhD. And so that one MD learned how to read the research, and they were one of however many were in the school at the time, hundreds, right? Going through a
Right.
medical program. And so that's important to understand too. So for you as like a patient who's walking into your doctor's office, bring the research, bring the summary of it. Because so many doctors, what they'll do is they'll just read the summary, but the summary doesn't
Mm.
actually tell you information about things like confidence intervals or like the actual statistical significance of a study. It will just summarize, and sometimes it's overselling what the paper actually accomplished,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So it's like read the whole thing, understand as much as you can. Now we have like AI, goodness. I mean, for all the evil it does in the world, it's super beneficial if you want to take a research paper and be like, can you break this down into layman's terms for me so that I can understand this? I want to take this to my doctor. Here's a link to a research paper. Give me like the actual breakdown of what this means. What do these terms mean? How can I present it to my doctor to present my case? Like, oh my gosh, if AI could be used for good, it's that, right? Like, just give me
Right.
Mhm.
some confidence. But yeah, it's important to understand that doctors are not researchers. They're not reading the research. They may not understand the research, not because they're not intelligent, it's because they're not untrained in that. That's not necessarily part of the clinical or educational experience pathway for a doctor. Some doctors have that training, some don't. So I think that's important to understand too. We expect that our doctors are keeping up on the latest research, but ultimately what they're doing is being informed by whatever institution they're part of on institutional changes, and those are what they
Right.
implement. And whether they
Right.
actually read the reasons or understand the reasons for those changes is totally up to them on an individual level.
Yeah.
So you said
Yeah.
the first pillar is that mind-body connection, correct? What is the next pillar from there?
Yeah. So obviously nutrition is a big pillar. And one of the things I really like doing is breaking dogma that surrounds nutrition because it becomes a very divisive and like weirdly political topic at times, right? There, in now reading probably over 1,000 studies of remission and anecdotal stories, right, included in that number, everybody has healed from every condition following every kind of diet. So you have people who have healed from stage 4 cancer following a vegan diet, right? That's not the only thing they did, but that's one of the things they did. Followed a vegan diet, they healed from stage 4 cancer. You also have people that have healed from stage 4 cancer following a ketogenic diet, which tends to be more heavy in animal products,
Yep.
right? So there is no one right answer. The thing I find with the pillar of nutrition that matters most is somebody following their intuition and doing what they think is going to help. That ties into the mind-body
Mhm.
connection. But if you have like it could depend on the type of cancer, right? If I had stage
Right.
4 colon cancer, I probably would adopt a plant-heavy,
Right.
low meat diet because that's the one that's been most studied for colon cancer. I'd probably
Right.
include fish, but limit meat otherwise and go plant heavy. Once I didn't have markers of the cancer anymore, would I continue that diet? Probably not. I'd add animal protein back in. That's the way I lean as a nutritionist, but maybe I feel fantastic on that diet and I'm going to continue it for a while. I don't know, right? If I had glioblastoma multiforme, which is one of the most aggressive forms of brain cancer, I would adopt a ketogenic diet because that's one of the most studied and most effective diets for that type of brain cancer. So it really just depends on the condition. Multiple sclerosis, I've seen people heal following plant-based diets. There's Terry Walls, who does very heavy plant-based and animal protein. There are people who have healed following carnivore diets. My mentor um, has been working with ALS for quite some time now, probably over the last decade. And she has the first case of ALS remission following a carnivore diet. Do I
Oh.
recommend the carnivore diet for everybody? No. Outside of a therapeutic use, do I recommend it? Probably not. Like, just
Hmm.
depends, right? And so we get so dogmatic about nutrition. And it's like the person who this is what we see with like the age of influencers on social media. Like, let's
Hmm.
just say that ALS person who reversed and went into remission from ALS, which is supposed to be impossible, following a carnivore diet, goes onto social media and becomes an influencer. And they're like, the carnivore diet saved my life. Everybody has to be carnivore, 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 carnivore. Well, is that the right diet for somebody with stage 4 colon cancer? I don't know. Right? That hasn't
Hmm.
been studied.
Hmm.
And so it's like, but that's where we just start being like, oh, this thing worked for me. And so it's, if everybody did this, everybody would get better. But in
Hmm.
reality, what we see in research studies and case studies and anecdotal stories is that people heal from all kinds of diets. And in fact, in Kelly Turner's remission work, she has a remission database. Her project is Radical Remission. She's incredible. I've read a lot of stories from her database. There are people who made dietary changes but still left in totally processed crap foods that they liked. So, like one woman changed her diet to be more plant forward, better, cleaner sources of animal protein, but she left in pizza. If I had cancer, advanced cancer, I don't think I would be leaving in pizza, but she did because it brought her joy. And she said she needed to have joy in her life. That felt important to her. So she left
Hmm.
it in and she reversed her cancer, still including pizza. Like that blew my mind. I think that story was the first time that I was like, okay, I cannot be dogmatic about this anymore. I was, as a
Hmm.
nutritionist, much more dogmatic. Of course, all of us that are in the field of nutrition, of course, we think that the nutrition principles that we believe in are the best. We wouldn't believe in them if they weren't, right?
Hmm.
But it's so easy to get so dogmatic about it when in reality, things work for everybody and you just have to try. And I would say intuition is the most effective piece of that is like being able just to sit quietly and ask your body, what do I need today? Right. And provided that you are not addicted to sugar or processed foods, because those addiction pathways will mess with your ability to like have an honest conversation with your body, right? Those cues override all of your actual like innate intelligence.
Hmm.
So as long as you're free from those addictions and you're eating cleanly, like anybody could sit right now, close their eyes, do a body scan and ask, what do I need? And the food that they need is going to come to their mind, right? Like I could sit here and be like, oh, a hard-boiled egg sounds really good right now. And have you ever had that? Like you like crave and crave a food, you eat a bunch of it, and then it sounds disgusting to you 10 minutes later, right? Because you ate so much of it. Why is that? Because your body doesn't need that nutrition anymore. So are you going to sit down and force yourself to eat that food? No, of course not. You start kind of like hankering for something else. Like you might have hard-boiled eggs for breakfast 6 weeks in a row, and then suddenly the thought of a hard-boiled egg makes you want to die. And all you want is like a veggie hash or like a zucchini or like bacon. Like just, I
Hmm.
think part of taking your power back is honoring what your body is asking for. And that is the
Hmm.
nutritional protocol that works best. Again, prefacing it with you cannot be addicted to processed foods because that
Right.
overrides this. It's like a drug addict craving drugs. Are drugs what's actually good for the body? Of course not. But it's overridden all of their dopamine, their serotonin, all of their reward pathways, all of their signaling pathways. Processed foods do the same thing. And so as long as you're free from that and you're able to make those decisions free from that influence,
Yeah.
then yeah, absolutely. It's like yeah, it's a powerful, powerful piece of nutrition, and it's probably the most important because, again, going back to that mind-body connection, if you don't feel good, if you're staring down the barrel of a life-altering diagnosis and what you feel in your body right now is, I think following a vegetarian diet with lots of fish just feels what I need to do right now
Yeah.
then every time you consume those foods, what you're imagining is that your body is getting better, and that's powerful.
That
Hmm.
is so powerful. That's like,
Ugh.
I guess I never thought of it in that way, but I definitely have those moments and even some of the stuff I'm currently doing. I told Maddie, I was like, I'm not gonna like get so much into the weeds and be like super intense, but I am going to be adding in this, this, and this because I've seen people talking about this and I've seen other physicians and like it's not gonna kill me. It's like just different types of food. Maybe I'm not normally having an emphasis on, but like when I do be having this thing, I'm like, yes, this is working. Yes. And it's so powerful. I mean, even if you take it on like a very basic, like for weight loss, if you're like, oh, I'm having more protein, like I feel really good. I am making progress. Like it's on the most basic level. And so, of course, on a level of like, this is going to save my life, of course, we believe it that much more. Like that's such a impactful way to think about really healing through nutrition. It's not necessarily what you're eating that does play a role, but it's what you believe it's doing.
Hmm.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
believing that
Oof.
it's going to work for you and
Hmm.
that it's sustainable for you because
Yes.
you could follow the best anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, reverse MLS
Yep.
or reverse ALS, reverse MS. Like you could follow the most rigid diet in the world, but if you can't sustain it, like what's the
Yep.
point, right? It has to
Right.
be
Hmm.
sustainable. And that's why I was so like influenced by the stories of people who left in things that they loved because they felt like
Mm.
joy was an important piece of their healing journey, and it is. It's
Yeah.
such a big piece of it. It's interesting on the nutrition side of things. Dean Ornish has done so much research. He's very plant-based, okay? He's done a lot of studies with like prostate cancer, and he did a study with people who had early stage prostate cancer. He put them on a plant-forward vegetarian diet. He also incorporated social support, like community,
Yeah.
mental health, like he did, and movement, like healthy movement. He incorporated other things into the study, which I really liked. There was something interesting with the vegetarian diet, the and all of those lifestyle changes incorporated. Their PSA levels went down. PSA is a marker that shows cancer activity in prostate cancer specifically. So their PSA markers went down. Their like antioxidant status, of course, eating more vegetables went up. They
Yeah.
had like and they had good regression of the disease. When they studied, they took serum from those participants and they put it in a petri dish of cancer cells. And when they did that, they took the serum from those people following those diets, following those changes. They put it in that petri dish. It killed 75% of the cancer cells in that dish. So literally the
Wow.
blood from those participants fought cancer. It killed
Wow.
75% of the cells. In in situ, in the actual person, it was only about 9% effective. And that really says something, right? Like, take a minute and sit with that. Why would that, like, begs a big question, right?
Mhm.
Why would it kill cancer cells in a dish in a lab, but not in a human being? Like, what do you ladies think? I have, of course, thoughts on it. What
I
do you
have an
think?
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
fire
think we
away.
get in the way. We get in the way. We don't have confidence in these things. And I was going to remark on this earlier, but kind of what you talked about being less dogmatic. I mean, I always say the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything. And especially when it comes as we are all nutritionists here in a different aspect, like the more we learn through coaching, we realize there are so many ways to skin a cat. And I think about how much the mind connection we have with things, and the more I've leaned into what I talked about a little earlier, the nervous system and things of that aspect, we are telling ourselves what is going to work and what is not going to work. And the minute you add in our brain and our, um, I guess sometimes our humanist ability to not have, blind faith, so to speak, or something's going
Yeah.
to work, we get in the way of the healing process. And 10 out of 10, that's what I believe that is.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it definitely has to do with when when your mind is getting involved and you're having the anxieties and the doubts. Like even if you're really trying to believe and you're doing your best, you're still having those human moments. And maybe you don't have the tools to be regulated. You don't know how to take a deep fucking breath. You're not protecting yourself in a way. So, I mean, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I love it. You ladies both kind of hit two different points, right? Maddie, the mind-body connection and a mindset, what we believe is working could get in the way, right? That's what's happening in a real person. The cells in a dish are not thinking anything, right? They're just existing.
Mhm.
And then Allie, the piece of like stress regulation, management, like nervous system regulation, right? Again, those cells, cancer cells are not stressed out. They're just doing their thing. They're happy. They're on a petri dish. They're being fed, right? Yes, that's exactly right. In a body, do you think those cells in the dish, do they have past childhood traumas that they're still dealing with
Mm-mm.
internally? Did they go through a hard relationship? Do they have their boss yelling at them? Did they sustain like verbal or physical abuse? Did they like are they being exposed on a regular basis to carcinogenic materials in their skincare and their house cleaning products? Are they,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
in a controlled environment. And that to me is nutrition important? Yes, it is 100% a necessary part of healing in my book. It certainly isn't
Mhm.
going to hurt. There are people who have achieved remission not changing a thing about their diet, right? That
Right.
exists. That's real. That's in those 3,500 documented case stories. There are people that didn't change a thing, went through remission. And but you can't put crap into your body, right? Input equals output. So you can't put crap into your body and expect it to thrive. But it's clearly
Mhm.
not the only thing. If
Yeah.
you take it and you put it in a controlled vacuum of an environment like you do with a petri dish in a lab, then yes, diet makes all the difference in the world. But if you take it
Mhm.
and you put it in a real person and that person hasn't dealt with this childhood trauma that they went through and they are still internalizing that, and they have bitterness and anger, which is like
Yep.
destroying their liver and their gallbladder and their heart. If they have grief, which works against the lungs, if they have a boss that is yelling at them or a terrible traffic clogged commute to work and they're stressed all the time, those are the things we have to address. And that's kind of getting to the other pillars of healing, right? It's how we handle our stress, it's stress management, it's dealing with past childhood traumas, adverse events. Studies have shown that people with one or more adverse childhood events have a greatly increased risk of chronic disease later in life. Why is that? right? Because we internalize those things, it becomes poison to our cells. And not only that, but when we speak of the nervous system, I read a really interesting story. I think it was actually in Joe Dispenza's database. He described a woman um, whose husband committed suicide. And he left without saying goodbye to her. He said goodbye to the kids. He left. She was in the shower. She didn't know he'd gone. He left. He went to work and he committed suicide. And every day for the next 7 years, she rehearsed that day again and again in her mind. You can't blame her, right? She went through all the things of like, what could I have done differently? How did I
Yeah.
not know, right? Guilt, 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 guilt. I messed up. I should have known. I should have known. I should have known. Then she went through anger at him. How could he do this? How could he leave me and the kids in this place? And then she's internalizing all of that anger day after day after day. She developed horrific, like end stage diseases, multiple organ failure. She was like bedbound in a wheelchair. She ended up
Oh.
in an abusive relationship. Like within those 6 years, she went through all those things because she hadn't changed her diet. She hadn't changed anything else in her life, right? But she was internalizing all of those emotions. And not only that, your nervous system and your body do not necessarily know the difference between actually experiencing an event and
Mhm.
Right.
thinking about that event.
Right.
So when you relive the past and you continue reliving these moments in your life, your body experiences it as if it's happening to you right now in the present.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
that's one of the biggest like pillars is dealing with those past emotional childhood, whatever it is, life traumas, both with a capital T and a lowercase t, because there are smaller life traumas that still impact our biology that keep us in that fight or flight switch, right? That's what she did to her body. She kept herself in fight or flight mode because every day for the following 6 years, it was like as if her husband was committing suicide over and over and over again.
Ugh,
And she was going through
yeah.
the stress response
Mm.
of that over and over and over again because that's what she was thinking about all day long, day in, day out, right? And it didn't just affect her physical health, it affected her mental health, her emotional health, her decision
Mhm.
making, obviously. Like, and when she hit pause on that loop and started meditating, she ended up going to one of Dispenza's events. A friend took her. I think she was wheelchair bound at that point.
Oh.
She went to an event, she learned about the meditation. She started being able to stop those thoughts in her tracks and replacing them with being present in the moment and forgiveness for
Mhm.
herself, forgiveness for her husband, like compassion, gratitude, replacing all of these negative pathways that she dug pretty deep neural pathways in her brain, right? She had worked really
Yeah.
hard. She completely reversed everything. I mean, she was in basically like she was going to die. I mean, with
Yeah.
soon. Right. And she reversed
Wow.
all of those things by reversing the rehearsal that was happening in her brain. And so
Mhm.
again, the cancer cells in a dish are not experiencing that. And so she could have
Mhm.
been eating the healthiest diet in the world, and that would have been
Yeah.
beneficial. It would have fought some of
Right.
the inflammation that was building, right? But it cannot bring you out of a poor mental state and emotional state. And again, not blaming her. Oh my goodness. Like, what would any of us do in that situation?
Right.
But like, it's just brings it home how much those things matter because that's the thing that she changed. It brought on the
Yeah.
disease, and when she changed it, it reversed the disease. So that's like another big pillar for me is dealing with those emotional traumas and our emotional health
Yeah.
and suppressed emotions. It all ties hand in hand, right? If you're holding on to
Yeah.
anger to
Mhm.
against somebody and you've suppressed anger. I mean, imagine anger, especially, is such a powerful emotion. I'm sure you can like put yourself right now in a moment in time. Have you ever been in a room and somebody who's angry walks in
Ugh.
and
Mhm.
poof, you feel it?
You are like, I gotta get out of here. Where is the
Yep.
exit sign? Like
Yep.
it is one of those emotions. Like I think Maddie and I have talked about this a couple times, but like you can feel people's like energy like
Yeah,
seven
it's
feet
like
away,
seven, no,
something like that.
is it feet or inches? I can't, it might
Oh,
be
I have
feet.
no idea. It might be
It might
inches.
be feet.
Regardless, you
You feel it.
feel that.
Yes.
Oh,
Um, I had a quick question before we get too far off about rumination. This is something I've struggled with I could tell you it probably, and love my parents, who did a great job. I always say like they did the best they could with what they had. But when it comes to discipline and, being disciplined, I don't know if my parents ever, because I can't remember specific things, but I know a lot of parents do say, like, go in your room and think about what you did. And I wonder if that is a trigger for rumination in adulthood, or rumination is a learned skill, or I don't want to say a skill, a learned habit, or it's something that has to do with, I don't know, a specific, I don't want to say disorder, disease, but what do you know when it comes to rumination? Because that's what that woman was experiencing. And like, how does that happen if you have any idea?
Yeah, such a great question. I mean, it all has to do with neuroplasticity and like neural conditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we form neural pathways with our thoughts, with our actions, with repeated whatever, repeated words,
Hmm.
repeated thoughts, repeated actions. Think about it of like if you lived on a dirt road and you drove down the same part of the road every single day. What happens? You form ruts, right? The
Yep.
more you drive down that same part of the road, same exact same section every single day in and day out, pretty soon those grooves are pretty deep. And
Hmm.
that's what's happening with rumination is you are forming grooves in your neural pathways, and it becomes the easiest path to take. If you try to drive outside of those ruts, like it's like dunk, 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 dunk,
Yeah.
right? You're going in, you're going out, you're going in, you're going out. It's just much easier to drive through those ruts every day than to try and form new ones. And that's what
Hmm.
rumination is basically you've formed the neural loop, the neural pathway that's easiest to go down because you've thought that thing again and again and again and again.
Hmm.
Becomes easier and easier to think that thing. And then pretty soon it's really hard to not think that thing. And then it's really hard to think anything else but that thing. Like,
Hmm.
and so what meditation does and what like gratitude journaling and like I don't like saying positive thinking because it sounds so like airy fairy, but it's like
Yeah.
optimism. What it does is it interrupts that pathway. And gratitude, what I've heard it said is like you cannot hold anger and gratitude at the same time.
Hmm.
Right? And so it's having to interrupt, find the tools that interrupt that pathway. And
Okay.
then like you stop building those grooves and you can start to build new ones. And that's the power of working on your mindset is you're working on those rumination pathways. You've just grooved because you've been thinking those things for so long. It becomes so hard not to think them. That's just the easiest way forward now.
Right.
Now it's going to take effort, but you can do it. But you have to
Hmm.
think and recognize that pathway. Oh, I'm ruminating about this thing again. Okay, I'm going to write down 3 things I'm grateful for because being grateful puts you in the present. And most rumination is happening over things in the past.
Impact.
Some of it's
Yes.
happening over like things that are happening in the present, or some of it's happening in the future, right? Kind of depends on where you land. Like some people are worst case scenarios and they're always thinking in the future and they're predicting the worst possible outcomes, whereas other people are trapped in the past and they're thinking of what they
Hmm.
should have done. So it kind of
Right.
depends which way you sway, but rarely is it just in the present moment. Mostly it's thinking about bad things that could happen or bad things that did happen. And
Hmm.
so getting yourself in the present moment with gratitude is a really powerful disruptor to that. And
Mm.
then it's just learning to do that because then it's like if every time, if 1 out of 10 times you have those ruminating thoughts, you stop and you gratitude journal, then that can lead to 2 out of 10 times. And then
Hmm.
eventually 3 out of 10 times and 4 and 5. That's how it works. It's the power of practice. That's why we call it a practice,
Yep.
right? It's a yoga
Yeah.
practice, a meditation practice, it's a gratitude practice. That's why it's a practice. You have to learn how to do it, but it's hard, right? That's why it's one of the pillars.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I've
It's so
struggled with
influential.
rumination for as long as I can remember. And it would be, you know, as we are all business owners here, you make a mistake and it's like the end of the world when you start business. And I can tell you how many times I made a mistake with a billing thing or this thing, and it would take me out for hours because I was like, I can't believe I did that. And like mentally, you're beating yourself up about this and thinking about it and rehearsing what happened, and you're trying to do something else, and you're not fully present. And when I was really sick, unable to walk, that's all I thought about was how I couldn't
Right.
walk, and I feel so terrible. And it just keeps you in that negative brain space. And now, having some little blips on the radar of things with health, I am more cognizant of when I am ruminating. And I like that. Like, I want to take that gratitude idea. Me and Allie do send each other probably like every other week or so a gratitude list, like voice memo. So I don't even have to worry about writing. And I think having that tool in the toolbox of, okay, I'm finding myself ruminating. I'm going to write down 3 things I'm thankful for
Yeah.
or grateful for. I think that's a really easy tool, and it's a free tool too. You could just say it out loud. You don't have to write it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready to like really challenge yourself, try to think of something different every time. So three
Oh,
things,
Yeah.
and it can be so basic, right? But it just
mhm,
makes you think. Like there have been times, and there is actually a connection between writing it. They've shown like that
mhm,
reinforces the neural pathways stronger, is like
Yeah.
actually writing it versus thinking it. But whatever works, right? Whatever works works.
mhm.
Whatever's sustainable is what you
And
should do.
whatever like gets you started, I think
Right.
for a lot of people,
Yes.
because a lot of people like might be like, well, now I have to like go and get a notebook and write this
Yeah.
down. And like now I'm going to the store and it's another thing. And like it really does become a big event when it's pulling you further from what you could be doing.
Yes.
And so I love the idea of just like even like 1 out of 10 times, like give yourself the space to start it maybe in your head and then maybe say it out loud. And then when you feel confident, okay, go get that notebook because you're already at the grocery store. Like make it work for you. But yeah, I am a self-proclaimed used to not really give a fuck about gratitude. I was like, what am I supposed to be grateful? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's so cheesy. And then we were talking to friend of show, Inspired Delusions, and they were like, it could literally be anything. And when you said it could be anything, I go, I'm really grateful for my very cute water bottle because it has been helping me drink way more water in a time where I'm like going through it. And what's going to help me feel better? Well, being dehydrated is not going to help me feel better. So at least I'm hydrated. And like
Mhm,
that brought a feeling of like, ooh, I felt like a pinky red color in my chest. And that made me happy. Like
mhm,
so it really is honestly sometimes like the simplest shit and you don't have to overthink it. But of
mhm,
course, what do our brains do? We try and overthink it and make it have to be this thing that's going to be like groundbreaking because that's what's going to bring about the most change for our health in the positive way.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. And it's like once you really start thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for my cute water bottle. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm thankful I have water to put in this water bottle. There are people that don't have that,
Yup.
right? Like, I'm
mhm,
thankful I can breathe clean air. I'm thankful that I'm in a house with temperature control. Like,
Yep.
mhm.
you can get so basic. There are people that are like, I have nothing to be thankful for. And I'm like, that is just not true.
Right.
Everybody can have something. I'm thankful that air
Yes.
exists and that I can breathe air. I'm thankful that like I could move my muscles today. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it does just take rehearsal. I like the challenge eventually of getting to the place where I was like, okay, I'm no repeats. I'm going to think of something new.
I like that. Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's
I
really
love
fun too, because
that.
then
Yeah.
you start to get creative and you just realize how much you have in life
Right.
to appreciate,
Right.
right?
100%. I always, every time I come back from visiting my family in Mexico, I'm always so humbled and so grateful for all the things that I have because if people aren't aware, in Mexico, there's a lot of people. Just in the town my grandma lives in, it's outside the city, there's 3 million people. And there aren't a lot of houses. They're building these houses that are basically just like cement bricks and they just add a room at a time. There is no running water, there is no roof, there is no plumbing. And when we pass these houses, I'm just like, I have a roof over my head. Like I have a warm apartment. Like I have running water, and it's just, we forget how lucky we are living in. I think if you're in the United States, you're automatically the top, what is it, like 1% or something of the world, something crazy. Just living in the United States with a poverty level income, you are still far better than people that are living just outside of Mexico City without running water. I think we forget that and we get so caught up in all the other things we quote don't have, when in reality we have a lot more to be thankful for. And that always puts me back into perspective.
100%. And
Yeah.
you both have kind of alluded to something too, which is the importance of small steps. in our healing journey, right? Small steps with the gratitude and the idea that healing is not linear. So
Mhm.
that's such an important thing for people to realize. I work with this on our documentary with our documentary subjects all the time because there will be good days and there will be bad days. What's important is that the level and the baseline is always improving, but it's still going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But as long as the general trajectory is up, you're good. And what I've realized working as a nutrition specialist and a health coach, I'm sure you ladies have run into this, is when somebody comes to you, their baseline is so low. Oftentimes they're coming to you and they have like chronic migraines or fatigue. They can barely get out of bed in the morning. Like they may have really bad muscle pain. They have really bad like GI issues. And then as those things start to get better, they forget how bad it was. And each time
Right.
the baseline raises. And so then it's really easy to get into this mindset when you have a bad day of like, oh, nothing's better. And you're like, really? Because your
Yep.
worst day today was your best day like 10 weeks ago. Like, let's just
Yeah.
focus on that. And that's part of the power of journaling as well with your health journey is like, not just for the sake of gratitude, but start there. But if you're, I'm not like a solid journaler. I do not keep up on it regularly, but I encourage people to do it when they are working in the early stages of recovering from a condition because you forget how bad
Mhm.
things were when things start
Yeah.
getting better. And that's
Yes.
powerful too, is like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to be at a place where I couldn't run my full 5 miles today because my knee started hurting. Okay, well, 6 months ago, you couldn't run 1 mile. And now not being able to run five feels like a setback. But what was it before? Could you even get
Right.
out of bed? Right. So that's like,
Mhm.
that's all part of the gratitude piece too, is being thankful for where we're at today and leaving space and self-compassion for the bad days and understanding like it's not going to be linear. And,
Mhm.
of course, there's pillars to healing that everybody knows, the nutrition, the movement, right? Moving our bodies is one of the best ways to tell our body that it's safe to heal, like moving in constructive ways, whether it's yoga or stretching or qigong or running or lifting or whatever. All of that movement signals to our body that it's safe to repair and it's safe to heal. And not only that, but it reduces stress, it reduces inflammation, right?
Mhm.
That's again one of the pillars. And so starting slow, incremental, just like Ali said, like, okay, maybe it's too much for you to go get a notebook today. It's the same thing with movement, right? Like maybe you are bedridden and cannot get out of bed. Just like move your hands, roll your wrists, roll your ankles, whatever you can do. Raise your eyebrows. Do face yoga. If your whole like body is paralyzed and all you can do is like face yoga, do that,
Mhm.
right? Like movement is such a powerful tool for your body, but just like everything else, you start it really slow and you build up and be grateful and appreciative for where you're at each moment and look for the improvements, look for the things that are better. Oh my gosh, last week I couldn't raise my legs. This week I can. And I'm going to like
Mhm.
really lean into that, right? That's how progress happens.
Mhm.
And so it's like, regardless of whatever pillar of healing you're working on, having that slow and steady wins the race is such a like powerful mindset because even though it's not really true, like I don't know if you've ever seen the t-shirts that say slow and steady wins the race, except in a real race. Like I love that.
Right.
I love that. But the mindset of that is true. It's like just be thankful for the little bits you can do each day, whether it's breaking those really deep neural pathways, that rumination, whether it's stepping into gratitude, whether it's being able to just to move your body for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, whether it's being able to lift a weight for the first time, whether it's like actually eating a nourishing food that you
Yeah.
feel good eating. Like all of those little steps take you in the right direction and like they give you the confidence you need to keep going, to keep trying, to keep experimenting. And what I find is when people make the necessary changes and they start feeling better, that's the motivation. I
Yeah.
have a like one of the newest documentary subjects we started with, she thinks she doesn't even have a year left. Like she feels like if things continue the
Wow.
way that they have been. I asked her as part of like the interview, I said, what would life look like in 5 years if you didn't make any changes? And she said, I can't even imagine I have a year if I don't make any changes. And that's the
Wow.
level that her health is at, and it's severe.
Yeah.
All we've done so far, she's only been working with us for a month. All we've done is add in some supplements, a vitamin C. We suspect she's very, very low, almost like scurvy level vitamin C. That's what I suspect. I don't know. Vitamin C, a B complex support, all food-based vitamins,
Yep.
right? I had her start eating sauerkraut at breakfast. We added in a neural support supplement. We only added in 4 supplements. She's not taking anything else. 4 supplements. Had her start eating sauerkraut with breakfast. Didn't have her change anything else, and asked her to add leafy greens to one meal
Yeah.
in her day. And it's been like 3 weeks of that. Her constant headaches have completely diminished. She has energy back. She got a job. She was unemployed. She couldn't
Wow.
before.
Yeah.
Was able to restart physical therapy for the first time in months. Since January, she's lost almost 50 pounds. We did our interview with her, I think January 14th. Since that time, she's lost almost 50 pounds. So much of that is water weight, right? She had so much inflammation. She was
Yeah.
retaining so much water. You wouldn't lose fat at that rate, right? But she's losing a lot of water weight because she had so much inflammation. So like that's it. Four
Yeah.
supplements, and I didn't change anything else. She still eats crappy processed foods. Like I read her food diaries that I ask her to give me, and I'm like, oh boy. But that's it. And what a
Yeah.
difference that has made. And so this idea that it has to be all or nothing is
Yep.
just not true. It just has to be
Yeah.
what you can do today. And I sensed that she could not handle an all or nothing approach. There are people that can and that thrive with that, right? But I sensed that that would be overwhelming to her. And so we've just made really small changes, but what a like transformation. I mean, to talk to her now, she actually smiles. Oh my gosh, like it's just day and night. Like she looks so much better. She's like, it's crazy what 4 food-based supplements, literally just like food pressed into like a
Yep.
capsule
Yep.
and like a little bit of nutritional support. She is nowhere near where I would want her to be in terms of like implementing changes, and she's doing so much better with just the little changes. So that to me is like a powerful reminder to all of us, like change can begin small and it can still be significant. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once. You know, we promise the pillars of healing. Like, okay, it's nutrition, it's mindset, it's sleep, right? Getting quality sleep. Studies have shown that if you get less than 6 hours of sleep, your inflammation raises quite
Sure.
significantly, right? Okay. So sleep, movement, food, mindset, dealing with past emotional traumas, dealing with stress management. These are all the areas, but don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Just
Right.
realize that they all matter, and you need to start somewhere. So start where it feels realistic for you, what feels sustainable, what feels doable, what is your intuition telling you? Like Ali, I loved that you were like, "Oh, when I think about that thing, I feel like pink and red, like happiness in my chest." Like that's one of the things we have people do when we're helping them
Yep.
deal with a past emotional trauma is like what colors are associated with it, what emotions are associated with it, what words are associated with it, because it makes somebody tune into their body. So
Yes.
Mhm.
just tuning into your body and listening and asking it, what do I need to do today? What do I need to focus on? Maybe you feel like movement is the thing you need to work on the most, or maybe you know your sleep is crap
Yeah.
and you haven't practiced any sleep hygiene and you're on your
Mhm.
electronics late into the night and you're like on a
Yeah.
computer 10 minutes before you're trying to go to bed. Like whatever it is, you know that thing. And if you
Mhm.
sit quietly with your body and you ask it, like, what do I need to work on? And you just run through the list, I promise all 3 of us could close our eyes right now, sit quietly for a minute, and the thing our body needs most is what would come to our mind. It's just how it works. And you
Yep.
just trust that process. And you're like, oh, okay, I've been sitting for an hour and a half. I need to move my body. I can tell you that right now. I don't
Yeah.
even have to think about it.
This
Right?
is
Like,
so validating because in my current health journey and business and so many things with life, even like my recent relationship I was in, my body always knew every single time. My body knew and my brain did not want to listen. And I was trying to like outthink it, outsmart it. And just now, with health things going on, like my body knows it's smart. It's just we get
Yep.
so used to not listening and so used to overthinking and so used to listening to everyone else's opinion or listening to like the white lab coat theory, or if someone's, the doctor comes in, you lose authority over yourself and all those things. Like this is so validating because I've been told numerous times, like, Maddie, your body knows it's smart. And I'm like, but does it? Is it smart enough? But it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allie knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it knows. And I think the more that we are reminded of things, right? Like this conversation, and the more that we can be able to calm down, because that woman that you're working with, she couldn't see past a year because she was most likely in fight or flight, and she couldn't calm down. And if you can't calm down, then you can't listen. And I
Yeah.
think that's so freaking important. I'm so glad you're doing this documentary. I'm excited to watch it. When does it come out? Like, give us the
Oh yeah.
details.
Yeah. Okay. And before I launch into that too, just one more thing I just thought of as we were talking purpose and community are some of the
Mm.
other pillars we talk about.
Mm.
And it was so interesting having a conversation with this woman yesterday. I just met with her. Is that right? Yeah, yesterday. So when we had our first interview and we talked about, she doesn't have a year, it was very like, it was hard. It was hard to listen to. And she was very like, I don't want to say self-pity like a bad thing, but like you could tell she just was wrapped up in the like
Yeah.
victim mentality of it all.
Hmm.
And she's been through a lot and she's been very abused at the hands of doctors. She's indigenous and she's been like subject to radical racism. So like she's been through a lot. It's justified. But it was interesting to talk to her yesterday because she started talking about her purpose for why she's here and what she feels like she had an experience where she was able to give somebody a second chance. She was able to help them like set them up so they could go through drug rehab. And she just was like, I always have felt like this is my purpose in life is like, I'm here to help enable other people. And I thought,
Mm.
this is interesting. Back in January, when we first started talking, I don't think you could have any sense of purpose because you were so wrapped up in, I'm never going to
Hmm.
make it. But as soon
Yeah.
as you can flip that switch and you have something to live for, that's going to feed into it too. It's like she
Oh,
got out of the
wow.
weeds of,
Mm.
I'm dying and into the like, why am I here? What am I here on earth
Mhm.
to do? Like, purpose is such a key piece, and you don't have to, it's one of the things that can flip that switch. So I just wanted to like touch on that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just came to me. I hadn't thought about it before, but I'm like, she talked, it was like 50% of our conversation yesterday was talking about her
Wow.
returning to work and being excited. She's going to work, supporting the Indigenous government and helping Indigenous people. And she's really excited about that work. Like she's thinking about the future and having that
Hmm.
purpose and that future oriented, like planning for a life that you're actually present for is such a huge
Hmm.
piece of getting out of that negative spiral of I'm dying in
Yeah.
6 months, right?
Right.
Instead, it's like you start thinking about, whoa, what's my contribution to Earth gonna be? How can I help people? Like it just takes you out of, again, that rumination of everything's bad and I'm dying into like, oh, I have a purpose and a reason I'm here and I have a reason to live. Anyway, it came to me as we were
Wow.
talking. So I just wanted to touch on that too. And then, yeah, the community piece is what I hope we can build with the film. So,
Hmm.
um, it's a huge pillar. If I can just nerd out on one more study for one more second, there was a
Yeah.
town in Roseto. It's called the Roseto Effect now, but it was in Pennsylvania. It was like a town of entirely Italian immigrants. They all were very close knit. They lived with their kids. Kids lived with parents, lived with grandparents. Everybody was together. They all shared meals. They ate terrible. And Italians, I am 80% Italian. I can tell you they are notoriously bad tempered. They have a lot of bad living habits, right? They smoked, they ate fried foods, but they were together all the time. They had
Hmm.
community all the time. And they had the lowest rates of heart disease of any town in the surrounding area. So much so that people, like researchers and doctors, were coming to study their population because they were like, what are they eating? What are they doing? Are they walking? Like they were eating terrible, terrible food. But they had no heart disease, like almost no heart disease. And then in the 70s, like as things began to transform and move into the 80s, like kids started moving out, getting their own houses, white picket fences. They stopped having dinners together. They stopped living in the community, and their heart disease rates rose to match all of the surrounding areas.
Oh.
And that community piece is like it was everything. It was
Hmm.
the thing that was keeping their disease at bay is their hearts were happy. They didn't have heart
Oh.
disease because their hearts were full and their hearts were happy. But when they moved out of each other's lives and houses and began living these separate individualistic
Hmm.
lifestyles, their heart disease rose because they felt lonely for the first time, separated for the first time,
Mm,
isolated. And that is like for me with the film, if it could do anything, it helps people break that feeling of isolation because
Mhm.
they'll see the subjects in the film and they'll feel seen and heard, and we'll be able to start conversations and discussions that instead of being divided and political and opinionated, can just be open and curious and constructive. And hopefully we can like build a community around it. That's like my ultimate dream, right? Change policy, build a community, and give people that
yeah.
Rosetta effect where suddenly they feel like, even though we can't all physically be in each other's kitchens all the time, they feel like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Other
Right.
people are going through this with me. They can support me through this. There's people that have been through it and are on the other side, and like they're my champions and people are rooting for me, right? So release date of the film. So I think we have probably at least probably filming through the next year and a half. And then I've budgeted, budgeted with money I don't have, budgeted for a year of editing. I think that's kind of the like ideal time frame. It's a long time, but it gives on a project like a film like this, you have to leave
Yep.
room for the idea that you might be editing it all together and you realize you're missing footage that you really need. And so you have to leave
Yeah.
time and space to go
Mhm.
get the shots that really
Yep.
like complete the story.
Mhm.
So I've budgeted in terms of time, like a year for it. So I'm thinking like it sounds crazy, but probably 2029 is when it's coming out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then distribution is a multi-year process. I've just kind of grown comfortable with the fact that this is going to take forever. When I started
Mhm.
thinking about
Yeah.
it in like 2022, and then we started it for real in 2024. But if 2022 is when I started thinking about it, if you had told me it would be like 2029 before the film was coming out, I probably would have been like, nah, I'll pass. But
Yeah.
like, but I've just really learned to grow comfortable with like, this is a process and it's part of my hero's journey here on Earth. And it's just going to take years. Like, distribution is going to be a slow process. Like, but if I want the film to get in a front of as many people as possible, and I do, then I have to be strategic about it and I can't just rush into it. And so
Right.
I'm building actually my release strategy and distribution strategy for it now. So 2029 should be the release date. And probably we'll do film tours and screenings at universities. And my hope is to get it in front of an audience of people who have chronic illness and then an audience of
Yeah.
people who treat chronic illness, right? So to have
Mhm.
both parties fully educated
Mhm.
so that the conversations between doctors and patients become far more like empowered and far more actual conversations back and forth instead of just one way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, 2029, you can go to, I'm working right now with my, I don't know when this episode will come out, but I'm working right now with my editor. She's creating a new trailer. And we'll probably have a link to a longer, like 7.5 minute trailer. She just sent me through something that's really great. It's a rough cut, so it still needs work. It's not ready now, but yeah, I'm hoping people can get a sense of what the film is going to be
Yeah.
about from that like little 7.5 minute teaser and then the
Yeah.
full like 2 minute trailer. So hopefully those will be on the website. But right now you can get to it. My website is therenegadenutritionist.com. And if you go to that website, then I only have three tabs, and documentary is one of them. If you click on the documentary
Perfect.
tab, you can read about it. You can watch the current trailer. The current trailer that's up there as of today is the one I made. I'm not a professional editor. I think it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm not a professional. So it's the
Yeah.
one I've made that like just tells the basic story. It was like my proof of concept trailer because to try and get funding and go to people to attract sponsors and partners, like you have to be able to show them something of
Sure.
what you're
Yeah.
doing. So it's my proof of concept trailer. The one Wayme, my editor, is making is so much better. So I'm excited. So if this is a ways coming out, hopefully I'll have that new one up on my website. But
Mhm.
either way, people can go to therenegadenutritionist.com and click the documentary tab and learn more about it. And my podcast is part of my website too. So you could learn about the Renegade Remission podcast. And the documentary is called Alive and Well, Healing from Within.
I love that.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to watch that in 2029. And we'll put everything in the show notes too, so they can go and find you there. And you're on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah,
Elanie
barely.
Welch.
I'm so terrible at social media. But I am. My account is the underscore renegade underscore nutritionist. And yeah, I'm in at this crossroads of deciding whether I start an Alive and Well account just for the film and like start maintaining that. I don't have the bandwidth. Like you guys know,
Right.
social media is
Mhm.
basically a full-time job if you want to do it well. You have to keep up with the trends. So I am most active with my email list. So if you go to my website and you sign up to be on my email list, I send out a weekly email. And that's kind of the community I'm cultivating. I feel like eh, with an email list, it's the people that want to be there. And
Yep.
with social
Mhm.
media, you're just going to attract anybody and everybody who's
Yeah.
everywhere, right? And like, I don't need that negativity in my life. I don't need to make a post sharing my heart with the world and have like 50 Karens just comment like all of their negative energy
Yeah.
into it, right? So I like
Mhm.
having the email list and I like having the podcast for those reasons. But yes, if you sign up for my email list, you'll be far more informed. If you're on my social media, you will be updated whenever I feel like being on there.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, I'm super excited. We'll put everything in the show notes. And it was such a good conversation. We're so
Mhm.
grateful to have sat down with you on this Friday and just like get to dive deep into this. And I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. Let us know your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube or leave a review. Let us know your thoughts. But Eleni, we hope you have a great rest of your day. My cup has been filled. I don't know about you, Maddie, but even through all of our technical difficulties, our cup
Yes.
has been filled. So we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, thank you, ladies. I feel the same way. Conversations like this
Yay.
energize me, and you can tell when you're with your people, right? You walk away exactly that, feeling energized,
Yeah.
your cup is full. So thank you, ladies, for
Mhm.
giving that to me today. It was worth sitting for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
hour and
Right.
40 minutes. You ladies are
Um,
wonderful. Thank you for what you're doing with your podcast and just the gift and the light that you're bringing to the world. I've seen both of your
Oh.
posts on social media, and you're such a powerful, positive influence in that space. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing
aw.
too.
Oh, thank you
For
so
having
much.
me
That was
Thank
so
on.
you.
sweet. Yay. All right. Bye, Lainey.
Okay, bye, ladies.
Bye.